Since childhood, my aunt and I relied on each other to survive. My parents got married, but then my father left and never came back. My grandmother passed away when my aunt was only 18 years old. She became the only person I could rely on. She had never married in her life, and she raised me alone. She often complained about her fate, resenting that I had ruined her life. She beat me many times, but then hugged me and cried, saying, "My dear, in this world, you are the only relative I have left." When she went to work at the repair factory, the factory owner, a man in his 40s, pot-bellied and dirty, often helped her a little. But in return, she had to work in a harsh environment, with wounds that never healed. When I was 14, my father returned. He looked very shabby, and smelled even worse than my aunt's boss. My father rushed to hit my aunt, using his foot to kick her stomach. "Hurry up and give me the land title. Give it all to me." She had no strength to resist, only biting her father's hand hard. But immediately after, he picked up a wrench and hit her hard. "You brat, you dare to bite me? Do you know who I am?" Blood poured down, blurring my vision. My aunt rushed to shield me like a fish struggling in a net, crying and saying, "Don't hit me, please don't hit me. I'll take everything." She tried to endure, blood continuously gushing from her body. She looked at my father with pleading eyes. "Brother, please, save the child first. Call an ambulance." My father coldly replied, "An ambulance? You're worthy? Just die." After that, my father left, leaving my aunt in a miserable state. Her boss appeared, his mouth full of sarcasm. "Oh, I didn't expect you to be alive? Well, take him to Mr. Vong's clinic and see what happens to him." That clinic was actually just a place for cursory treatment. The boss dragged my aunt away, despite her profuse thanks. She endured patiently, just to save me. She was always by my side, taking care of me little by little. But every time she returned from the clinic or the factory, she was skinny and tired. One day, my father returned and shouted loudly, "Where did your aunt hide the red book? Tell me quickly." My aunt did not respond, only knowing how to protect me. My father was angry, threw the bowl of soup she cooked on the ground and shouted, "You bastard! Do you think you can escape me?" My aunt endured all the beatings, but her eyes were still full of determination. She just wanted to protect me, regardless of everything. But I understood that her patience could not last forever. My aunt used her strength, grabbed the shovel and waved it in her hand. "I will kill you all." She turned around like a hawk, pouncing on my father. At that moment, she was pushed to the ground, hitting something very hard. Blood started flowing. "Get out! Get out!" My father shouted, his voice mixed with anger. "You guys have lost all my property. Now do you want to live or die? My parents have already paid off all the debt, what else do you want?" My father continued, his voice annoyed. "It's not our fault. You're the one who made us pay," my aunt said, clenching her fists, her face angry. My father pushed my aunt, causing her to fall down, hitting a stove, blood starting to flow from her head. "Where are you running? I don't have time." My father shouted, holding a sharp knife and pointing it at my aunt. "Hurry up and give me all the land papers. If you don't, I'll kill you both." My aunt tried to stand up, but her legs were weak, her face was covered in blood. "Auntie, don't worry, I'll take you to the doctor, it'll be fine," I cried, quickly helping her up. My aunt tried to smile, patting my shoulder. "It'll be fine, we'll be fine," she repeated, hoping that we would be able to survive this storm, find a better life after our old house was demolished. "Once we get compensation, everything will be different. We will have money, have a house, and be able to live a better life." Despite the difficult circumstances, she still kept her faith in the future. When my aunt was no longer strong, my father began to pull out a sharp knife, threatening to demand papers. My aunt had no choice but to collapse, accepting her painful fate. My father continued to say harsh words, but my aunt just kept silent, hoping that everything would end soon. Finally, my aunt gathered all her remaining strength, and together we left that place, finding a safe place, but everything was still painful. Chapter 2. Every day, a large shovel was seen handling the garbage. No matter what it was, the shovel would scoop it up, put it into the compactor, and then become a square block. The garbage will be loaded onto a forklift, transported to the incinerator, and burned completely. Today is sweet. I opened my eyes, saw my aunt's room, bright, clean. On the table was a hamburger, as advertised, with beef and fresh green vegetables. My aunt wore a fur coat, not a single stain. She held the hamburger and smiled friendly to the neighbors around. The scene was too good, unbelievable. The light shone in, I suddenly woke up, my aunt was no longer here. It's okay, she went to work. I hummed a song, walking around the house. My aunt was about to have a new life, a better life. The person who destroyed our lives was destroyed, we would be at peace. I reached out to touch the bed. There was nothing. I lifted the blanket. Nothing. Sweat started to bead. I didn't believe in gods, but my first reaction was, could it be that he's gone? Trying to forget the dull pain of my wounds, I ran towards where she worked. The cold air hit my lungs, like ice nails piercing my flesh and blood. You'll definitely be fine. You're cooking steamed buns in the kitchen, once we're done eating, we can start over. As I ran, I cried. If I lost you, there would be no hope for life after the demolition of the building. You're here, Auntie. I cried out in a choked voice. You came to see me again? A neighbor auntie spoke up, her attitude not very friendly. Every time she went to work, she always brought a portion of food, meat, eggs, and sometimes some buns. Auntie, is my auntie going to work today? My aunt is off today, I heard she has something to do at the community center. Thank you, Aunt. I hurriedly ran away, ignoring her mumbling. I had lived in hunger since I was young, and poverty had made me lose all self-respect. I saw her discussing something with the sisters in the community. The women looked restless, and she smiled faintly. With no other choice, I returned to my room. Tried to remember what had happened last night. Everything in the room was clean, the bedding had been washed, and the dark curtains had been replaced. The pain flared up again. For so long, I thought that this wound would never recur, but now it was there. Or perhaps, she and I had both gotten used to the pain. I thought again, perhaps there was no other way to end that person's presence in our lives. Is this cramped house worthy of my aunt? Does she deserve to live like this, in this poverty? Thinking for a long time, I suddenly discovered something wrong. That's right, there was a big problem that I had overlooked. Panicked, I stared at my hand. The cake. She bought the cake yesterday that I hadn't eaten. I rushed over, rummaging through the room. Our house didn't have any proper utensils, not even the old shovel. I searched around again, but there was no cake. Her stomach wasn't good, if she ate a spoiled cake she would immediately have a stomachache. Remembering, I carefully searched the whole house. Sure enough, in the corner of the cupboard, I discovered a small stain of butter stuck on a screw. Clenching my fist, a fear rose in my heart. Last night, I clearly killed him. But then I fell into doubt, so where was his body? I sat down on the ground, trying to analyze. The first possibility, did he wake up in the night and leave? Impossible, if he was still alive, he would definitely come back to take revenge on my aunt. Could my aunt have discovered him and dealt with him? But how could she do that when she only weighed 40 kilograms, while he weighed 80 kilograms? This was completely unreasonable. Then there was only one possibility, he had really disappeared, as if he had never existed. The pain was getting worse and worse, I decided to lie down on the spot where I had placed his body last night, to try to figure out what the secret of this strange disappearance was. When I lifted the board, a streak of blood splashed onto my face. For a moment, I felt relieved that I had discovered it. Quickly wiping the blood off my face, I used my finger to wipe the saliva and wipe the blood off the floor. Little by little, the streaks of blood faded. Finally, when I finished wiping, I took a deep breath, intending to stand up. But when I turned around, a shiver ran through my body, from head to toe. Right in front of me was a pair of legs standing silently, not making a single sound. I quickly covered my mouth to prevent myself from screaming. That person stood still, as if he had no more breath. Sweat dripped from his forehead, my eyes widened, my heart pounded. Standing in front of me, was that a person or a ghost? Just a few centimeters from my toes. A fishy smell, mixed with a bit of cold air, blew into my brain, making me shiver. I stared at the legs, trying to focus on them to forget my fear. It was a brand new pair of short boots, about size 43, with some dirt on the soles. I had never seen those shoes before. Who was the person standing in front of me? Was it a ghost? Why was he standing there? While I was tense, the door suddenly made a squeak sound. Damn it! My aunt is back. Overcoming my fear, I grabbed the blanket tightly and rushed forward. Whether it was a ghost or a human, the two of them definitely had a better chance. You're back, my aunt's voice said. It was Boss Xiao. My back was already drenched in sweat, but hearing that, I sat down on the ground like a deflated balloon. What are you doing? Didn't I tell you not to meet at this hour? Ah, hee, I helped you with something yesterday, can't you get some benefits today? His depraved laughter made me clench my fists. Now. Can you wait a bit? My aunt's voice was full of rejection. I can't wait any longer, not even a minute. If you continue to resist like this, then what will we have in the future? The rustling sound of clothes being taken off rang out. I covered my ears, trying to block out Boss Xiao's lewd words and my aunt's desperate moans, but it was useless. When it was all over, my face was wet with tears. Chapter 3. So, you killed him, and you asked Boss Xiao to help dispose of the body, right? The interrogation lights were on me, and on the opposite side were the police officers staring. Yes, I killed him. I clenched my fists, trying to control my emotions. On April 14, 2003, in that room, I used a hammer to hit his head, then wrapped the body in plastic wrap, wrapped it tightly with tape, and stuffed it under the bed. But when I went back to move the body, it was gone. Why did you turn yourself in now? It's been a year. My aunt waited for the compensation money to be cleared, and now she's received the money. So where's the murder weapon, the hammer? I can't find it anymore, maybe my aunt has already taken care of it. Okay, if there's no problem, please sign and fingerprint. The police handed over the statement and fingerprint paper. After signing and fingerprinting, I asked a little worriedly. Officer, if I wasn't 14 at the time, wouldn't I have been executed? If I honestly confessed, would I have been able to avoid going to jail? The police recorded it in the file. So you weren't 14 then? Yes, not yet. I certainly wasn't then, I'm only 15 now. I eagerly awaited the results. Chapter 4. The old policeman opposite put out the cigarette in his hand. Just tell me what happened. April 14th, I got home from work. The room was filled with the stench of blood, the bed sheets were damp, I had washed them and hung them up to dry. I thought my nephew was still not well, so I didn't pay any attention. We finished dinner and went to bed. I woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. When I got out, I felt my feet were sticky. I turned on the light and saw a pool of blood. I thought something had happened to my nephew, so I rushed over and shook him awake. My nephew was burning hot, and there were no signs of injury. He muttered, "Auntie, we'll live well. He's gone. No one will bother me anymore." I mustered up the courage to grab a flashlight and follow the trail of blood under the bed. What I saw before me was the most horrifying sight I'd ever seen in my life. Something was bleeding and covered in plastic. I was so scared that I fell down and ran to Nin's side. The floorboards creaked, sounding like a ghostly voice. I shook Nin hard. Nin. Nin had a high fever and seemed to have fainted. He muttered, "Kill Liu Cheng. Kill Liu Cheng." I hugged myself, trying to calm myself down. The next afternoon, the ward staff came to announce the compensation policy for the eviction, helping us calculate the compensation amount to 800,000 yuan. 800,000 yuan. I've never seen such a large sum of money in my life. Our lives will change from now on, no more disasters from Liu Cheng. The compensation was almost due, but Liu Cheng appeared again. My whole life was ruined because of this brother. I could have lived happily. I had passed the entrance exam and received the admission notice. But it was all because of him. My parents sold the house to pay off their debts, and in the end they were forced to collapse. Ning and I could only eat wild vegetables every day, and we were starving. We were about to escape him, but why did he come back at this time? Tears had been streaming down my cheeks since when, I didn't know. Ning had made up her mind, and now nothing could change it, so we had to find a way to dispose of the body. 800,000 yuan could help us escape everything. After making up my mind, I still pulled Liu Cheng's body out despite my fear. When I lifted the plastic sheet, the sight was indeed nauseating, and the body had already started to smell and stiffen. We wrapped it up carefully and prepared to move. The body was too heavy, I couldn't move it alone, and Ning still had a fever. We needed someone to help, so I went to Boss Xiu. How did you get to know him? He was married, the two of them were about to sign a marriage contract, everything was ready, we planned to leave after receiving the compensation. How did Mr. Xiu and you handle the body then? There was a garbage disposal station behind. Every time the garbage was collected, people would compress the garbage into bales and burn it. Mr. Xiu used a barrel to put the body in and left no trace. Then, he also used an axe and divided Liu Cheng's body into many small pieces for easy transportation to the landfill. He was also injured, bleeding quite a lot. When the body was dismembered, did Ning not react? No, my nephew was weak, plus he had a high fever, so he was in a coma the whole time. He definitely didn't know anything. So the murder weapon was a hammer. Where did Ning throw it? Mr. Xiu must have thrown it into the garbage too. Police, Ning was only the murderer, and Mr. Xiu dismembered the body. I only helped carry the body twice. Does that count as a crime? Will I be sentenced? Ning confessed, so is it considered a reduction in sentence? Police Ho has completed the recording and the evidence papers. Captain, we have confirmed that Nin's birth certificate is indeed April 14th, born at the Maternal and Child Protection Station. The hospital has confirmed the supplementary birth certificate, and the date of birth matches the ID card. So on April 14th, Nin was not yet 14 years old. All the investigations showed that Nin was not yet 14 years old, which is surprising. But this Aunt Liu Fang is also a bit off. Why do you find it strange? I don't know, but she definitely has something. Work with the evidence team to see if they have discovered anything new. It's really difficult, the entire police department has to be strengthened, all just to dig up a little clue in hundreds of tons of construction waste. Finding evidence is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Have you found any clues in the garbage plant? The garbage is also within the clearance area. The garbage compactor has not made any significant progress. In the middle of winter, the body parts that were thrown away were almost frozen. The compression caused blood to splatter everywhere. We used a bulldozer to retrieve the compression equipment, and then send it to the testing department for analysis. On the factory side, the garbage bags were sent straight into the incinerator, and the 2 stages of complete combustion had completely destroyed everything. Back in the office, Captain Lin sat thinking with his notebook, constantly seeing under 14 years old, which was really too obvious. Currently, the case of Liu Ning killing his father only had Liu Ning and Liu Fang's testimony as the only evidence, nothing else. The conviction required a complete chain of evidence, but now there was almost nothing. It was really troublesome. The office phone rang loudly. The leadership was urging again, saying that this case had to be resolved quickly. Lin did not pick up the phone. He directly ordered, "Who, come and see him immediately." Captain Lin, there is something suspicious about Liu Fang. Normally, other families would do everything they could to protect the child, but this aunt seemed to be helping Liu Ning confess from the beginning to the end. Who handed him the documents? Injury case 211, the child was forced. If he didn't resist he would be killed. He was only defending himself. Harassment case 814, the child was good and innocent before. He had never done anything bad, he just drank too much. Please forgive him this time. In Liu Fang's case, From the beginning to the end, she didn't say a single word in her nephew's defense. Moreover, there was another problem. Liu Fang had always tried to protect her nephew, but this time she was different. In addition, according to the investigation, this aunt was the type of person who could endure everything for her nephew, but this time, what role did she play in the end? Captain Lin, could it be that the aunt was actually the murderer? She used her nephew, not yet 14 years old, to take the blame for me. The two most likely scenarios are that Liu Fang killed someone or both of them committed the crime. Who continued to analyze without paying attention. Captain Lam was deep in thought. Did Liu Ning really kill someone? Who, you go to the newspaper, announce the reward notice, and at the same time issue a wanted order for her, then go back to the office to report. That same day, the wanted notice was announced and there was another shocking article. The case of Liu Ning killing his father has taken an unexpected turn. The perpetrator could be someone else. The boy's aunt is using her nephew, who is not yet 14 years old, to take the blame. The entire police department was shocked when they read the newspaper. The interrogation was just finished yesterday, the forensic report has not yet arrived, and now the whole country knows about it. When the newspaper was received, the article only contained a few lines about the case. Most of the article described the conflicts between Liu Fang and Liu Cheng, as well as Liu Fang's relationships with many men. The article used exaggerated language, almost turning her into a depraved woman. At the end of the article, Liu Cheng, are you really a father who deserves to be killed by your son? Is it possible that a heartless woman, after killing someone, would force her nephew, who is not yet 14 years old, to take the blame for her? According to the source, the police have now identified Liu Fang as the #1 suspect in the Liu Cheng murder case. The extremely provocative words made everyone feel that Liu Fang was really the murderer. Very quickly after that, the leader announced to the police that everything must be based on evidence. Lin Yi. Whatever work your team has, do it well. Stop chatting. Who gave you permission to release information? What kind of farce are you guys planning to pull off in front of the public? Everyone must investigate clearly. There are 2 departments supervising the case now. The whole country is talking about it. Hundreds of eyes are looking at us. We have used all the resources of the bureau, and now you say we were fooled by a woman? Where do you want our bureau to show face? If we can't close the case, we can pack up and leave. The leader angrily threw the newspaper and picked it up again. After yesterday's testimony, they had actually listed Liu Fang as a suspect. Now that there was sensational news, it was really too strange. It was as if an invisible hand was pushing the case in this direction. Who, go to the newspaper office immediately. The editor-in-chief seemed to have known they would come, handing over 2 envelopes containing the cutout articles. The last sentence on the manuscript clearly read, "Exclusive news, every word is unedited, otherwise don't expect a next time." What about a next time? They quickly told who to check and monitor the editorial office's mailbox. At the same time, they carefully checked Liu Fang. The article was full of sarcasm and insults, but it was logically clear, and seemed to be written by an educated person. Back to the police station. Captain Lin, good news. There's a clue. Gu returned to the office and immediately started the interrogation. Chapter 5. Mr. Wang's wife went to the police station and confessed. Liu Cheng was killed by Liu Fang. I saw it with my own eyes. It was already dark. Liu Fang hurriedly knocked on the door. When he heard the knock, Mr. Wang stood up from the bed. She was obviously very panicked. Even her bandages were soaked in blood. Liu Fang said. Liu Ning was injured and bleeding, so she had to buy more bandages to stop the bleeding. At that time, she didn't have any money, so she told me to go home with her to get it, but then she changed her mind and told me to bring it later. I felt something was wrong, so I secretly followed her. The lights weren't on inside, I could only see 2 people vaguely. Did you see clearly who it was? I couldn't see clearly. The glass window was blocked by a torn plastic sheet and a piece of plastic, so I could only see 2 figures vaguely. Did you see Liu Fang kill someone with your own eyes? I didn't see. At that time, I only heard one person say, kill him, Liu Ning is not at fault. Is that what they said exactly? Yes, the original was kill him, Liu Ning is not at fault. Then what did the other person say, followed by a lower voice? That's right, kill him, we have nothing to do with each other. What happened next? Ho continued to ask. Then I was so scared that I didn't dare stay and hurried back. Why didn't you report to the police at that time? At that time, I was still in a daze, and I wasn't sure if it was true or not. If I reported it wrongly, I would have troubled you guys even more. If I wasn't sure, I shouldn't have done anything. Apart from the time I bought the medicine, did you see them anywhere else? No, I didn't see them anywhere else. After that, I only heard that Liu Ning was beaten a few times from time to time, and Liu Fang also took her nephew to the hospital a few times. The two of them are really pitiful. Their family is so poor that they have nothing to eat, and Liu Cheng just beats people whenever he has the chance. He's really heartless. Have you ever met Liu Cheng? Yes, I met him a few times before, but I didn't see him anymore. How did Liu Cheng beat people? He was very bad. Once Liu Ning was almost beaten to death, the family didn't have money for treatment, some relatives even had to give them 200 yuan to pay for the medicine. It must be said that it is rare to see someone so generous. Liu Ning is still young, the bones in his hand were also cracked from being beaten. To tell the truth, the child Liu Ning is really lucky, being so badly injured but still alive. Liu Cheng is a cruel person, beating his own child without mercy. It is really pitiful for Liu Ning. What is the relationship between you and Liu Fang? What relationship? There is no relationship at all. Liu Fang used to be known as a beautiful and educated person, but as time passed, she is now poor, and has to bear a debt of tens of thousands. She has to accept it. What can she do? Do you remember anything else? No, there is nothing else. Oh, and the police said that providing clues will be rewarded with $10,000, so when will I receive the money? Waiting to verify the exact clues. When the case is solved, I will notify you to come and receive the money. If there is nothing else, sign here. Oh, officer, there's one mistake, I remember it was April 15th, not the 14th. The old policeman on the other side heard that and sat up. Are you sure it's April 15th? Yes, I'm sure, I go there on the 15th of every month to withdraw money. Every time I withdraw, I buy some meat to worship my ancestors, and I don't usually drink alcohol. Definitely not the 14th, but the 15th. Hearing that it was the 15th, the two policemen on the other side were extremely excited. The policeman enthusiastically adjusted the record, then handed it back to her for her to sign and fingerprint. Sign the April 15th Part 2. Okay, you can go back. If there are any more clues, remember to report to us immediately. Yes, definitely. Captain Lin, it's just as we guessed. The murderer is Liu Fang. And the time of the crime is April 15th. Who was extremely excited. Captain Lin was also very excited. The truth was finally gradually revealed. Let's go interrogate Liu Fang again. Chapter 6, Interrogating Liu Fang again. Hearing that someone had provided clues, Liu Fang suddenly sighed and sat down on the chair. That's right, I killed him. What the hell happened? Who frowned? Liu Ning had already returned home. After school, Liu Ning bought a hamburger and came home a little later than usual. When he got home, the living room was already a mess. Liu Cheng, that bastard, was stepping on the child's birthday cake. You still know how to go home. You even crawled into another man's bed in the middle of the night. What a scoundrel. When people were already extremely miserable. Being cursed at for everything, but still trying to endure for the child. In debt, kicked out of the house, having to bow down, endure humiliation before rotten men, just to earn a living to feed the grandchild. Where is morality, culture, courtesy, and integrity anymore? Can't you live a little decently? Can't you? Because you have to live like a dog. But this time, you can't take it anymore. What to do? Raising the grandchild since he was a little baby, holding him, taking care of him, from a child who knows nothing until now, how can you abandon him? Even though you were cursed at, you still struggled to stand up, being beaten until you coughed up blood. Give me the land book right now, or I'll kill you. You and that brat won't be at peace. The boy struggled to beg. The man grabbed the chair next to him and hit him hard on the head. She rushed to stop him, but was pushed to the ground. There was a hammer next to her. She grabbed it and hit the man hard on the head. He collapsed. The girl didn't care about him anymore, just ran to help the boy. The boy was covered in blood, muttering, "You. Don't do that." The girl's tears fell down. She tried to stop the bleeding for the boy by all means, but the hemostatic medicine had run out. The boy was getting weaker. The girl could only press her hand on the wound, crying and calling his name, "Nin, don't leave me, hang in there. We'll go to the hospital right away, it's okay." The boy no longer responded, and the man woke up again. He held his bloody head, staggering to his feet. "You dare hit me? Damn it, do you want to die?" Afraid that he would hurt the boy again, the girl held the hammer tightly and hit him again, once, then twice, until the man lay motionless, covered in blood. The girl hugged the boy and cried, but the boy still didn't wake up. After that, the girl dried her tears and went back to get the house papers. Everything happened like a nightmare. Not only was there debt, but now there was also a dead body to hide. She checked the boy's breathing. It was still weak, the bleeding had stopped. She tried to stay calm, wrapped the man's body in a plastic bag, and cleaned up the blood on the floor. The body was too heavy for her to carry. Finally, she asked an old man in the neighborhood for help. He agreed to help, but only if she promised to marry him. She chopped the man's body into pieces, wrapped it in several layers of plastic bags, and scattered them in the trash cans in the area. Back to the police station. "Captain Lam, the boy only needs to stay in prison for a few years, at worst he will be sentenced. If he behaves well, the sentence can be reduced. In the future, he can still live well, even live better than before." As soon as Officer Ho finished speaking, he was stunned. The atmosphere in the room seemed to freeze. Captain Lam continued, "What about that old man? At first, he just needs to hide for a while, wait for everything to pass, and then come back. But the specific details are still unclear." The lights in the interrogation room were bright, and everyone's backs were drenched in sweat. It took a long time for everyone to calm down. In the office, Captain Lin sat flipping through the files recording Liu Fang's testimony. Policeman who beside him couldn't hide his excitement. "Captain Lin, we can report to the higher-ups now. The murderer is Liu Fang." But there was still something strange that Captain Lin couldn't get out of his mind. He pondered for a moment and then spoke, "Interrogate Liu Ning again." Chapter 7, Interrogating Liu Ning again. "Your aunt killed someone." "No, you killed him, don't listen to her lies. On the 14th, you used a hammer to kill Liu Cheng. I only helped you dispose of the body." "Liu Ning, don't try to hide the truth. If you cooperate with the investigation, we can not only help your aunt, but also help you." A complicated feeling flashed through Captain Lin's eyes. He remembered the image of his son yesterday, just because he couldn't buy the game, and got angry. "You think that since you're not yet 14, it'll be okay, right? But this incident will be recorded in your record, affecting your whole life. No matter what you do, you'll be discriminated against and shunned. Do you think that just going to jail for a few years will be enough? If you continue to take the blame for your aunt, you'll be charged with perjury. And now that you're 14, the consequences will not only harm your aunt, but also push you into a dead end. Son, tell the truth. Tell us honestly, we'll try to help you." Liu Ning heard these words, looked up at Captain Lin with a strange gaze. "Help? Haha." Liu Ning burst out laughing, as if he heard something funny. "I killed him. My aunt lied. On the 15th, the old man couldn't help with the body at all, because he left that afternoon." Captain Lin was stunned. That's right, the old man's wife had provided the information. He got on the bus at noon on the 15th. In a flash, Captain Lin realized a detail that had been overlooked when he was too focused on Liu Fang's confession. "How did you know he left?" "Who asked?" I saw him leave with my own eyes. At noon on the 15th, I hid there and heard him tell my aunt that he would get married after finishing his work. He even gave my aunt a marriage agreement. He forced my aunt, saying that as long as she signed it, they would get married immediately. My aunt was so stupid, thinking that she had finally found a way out. But he was only after the compensation money. So after lunch, I took a wrench and quietly followed him. After all, killing one person was no different. Besides, he deserved to die. You can't make up such lies. This won't help you. 3:35, the yellow-striped bus left. On the bus, there were 2 words, Lauda. I don't know all the words, but I remember those 2 words clearly. How do you remember so clearly? From that day on, I stood at the bus stop every day, hoping that he wouldn't come back. If he did, I would definitely protect my aunt. Captain Lam handed Liu Ning a piece of paper. Liu Ning scribbled, Lauda. The situation became complicated again. Liu Ning and Liu Fang, who was lying? Now, the only way was to find that old man. Send someone to verify the information at the bus stop, and we will go find him. Chapter 8 Interrogation, the old man's wife. Did your husband go to Lauda? Ho asked directly, without any courtesy. The woman was initially confused, then immediately became flustered. Yes, he did go there. But what does this have to do with anything? Did he sign a prenup? What marriage agreement? He said he didn't plan on getting married again? Who's marrying who? The woman almost burst into tears. Hu pulled out a crumpled agreement from his pocket, the word report scrawled on it. Captain Lam told Hu to continue questioning Liu Fang. The woman snatched the agreement, reading each word on the paper over and over again. That damn old man. How could he do that? The child is just a teenager, and he abandoned his wife and child for that Liu Fang? How will my child and I live in the future? She cried, tears rolling down her face. What about the child? If you don't report it, you'll be accused of concealment. By then, not only will the child not have a father, but also a mother. The woman burst into tears after hearing this. Okay, I'll tell you. He really came to Lauda. And there's another person, called Brother Long. I only know that, nothing else. Chapter 9 Final Words. Back at the station, Captain Lin quickly coordinated and contacted the Lauda police. The director of the department assigned the interrogation team to get more information. No need for details, just results. As a result, the old man was arrested. The case was finally cleared up. Captain Lin sat down and put all the evidence on the table. The Lauda police had cooperated well, all the necessary documents were available. Captain, our team is ready to go. The director held a report, walked in with an angry expression, and threw it on the table. Let's go, get in the car immediately and drive straight there. The Liu Ning murder case has reached a dead end. There is no evidence, there is a possibility of a suspended sentence. There may be new clues, but this time the report is mostly commercial advertising. Currently, there is no evidence or witnesses. In the end, how will the police handle it? Will the 14-year-old boy continue to take the blame, or will his aunt confess and be punished? These words carried dissatisfaction with the police department's investigation, and it was no wonder the chief was so angry today. Arriving at Brother Long. Finding the woman, the old man's wife, she was carrying a bag, holding a piece of paper in her hand, looking around. Follow. The woman turned through a few small alleys, finally stopping at a dilapidated house, knocking on the door. There was no answer from inside. She gently pulled back a corner of the curtain, looked inside, and saw someone inside, whispering something. Break in. Arrest me. Policeman Ho kicked open the rotten wooden door. Inside the dark house, there was a foul smell, cigarette boxes, fast food wrappers, betel and areca nuts, mixed with the musty smell of sweat. The old man sat with his head down, pulled up by the woman, crying and scolding, "You bastard! You dare to do this for a woman?" Seeing the police, he was like a deflated balloon, no longer able to resist. This man used to weigh 85 kilograms, but now he only weighs 65 kilograms. His neck was wrapped in bandages, his neck tilted at a strange angle, no one would recognize him. The police did not delay, immediately escorting him to the police station. On the way, the woman kept scolding, "Because of a woman, you dare to do something like this. Raising her grandchild, now you dare to kill someone, and even want to marry her. Ni is only 6 years old, how will she live in the future? With a father who was a murderer, how can she hold her head up high?" At this time, she pulled out a crumpled marriage agreement from her pocket. "Here, marry that woman. All the money in the repair shop belongs to her. Sign here, or you will have nothing left for the rest of your life." She angrily pushed the agreement in front of the old man, while he held the pen with trembling hands, signing his own name. Seeing him sign, the woman burst into tears and slapped him. Even though the police stopped her, she still left a few bloody scratches on his face. "Oh my God! You bastard! How could you really sign it? Why is my life so miserable? Ever since I became your wife, I have always suffered. Sometimes I was hungry, sometimes I was scolded by your mother, raising my child, and now what? And someone else took everything away. My life is gone." After crying for a while, she gradually calmed down. "It's good to sign it. Just consider me as having no father. Police officers, just use this agreement as evidence. From now on, the child and I have nothing to do with him." It was already midnight when they returned to the station. The chief told everyone to rest, but they refused and immediately began interrogation. The man pointed to his neck, coughed with difficulty, then gestured to the notebook. Policeman who quickly handed him a notebook. Chapter 10. The Old Man's Testimony. It was Liu Ning who killed someone, and Liu Fang lied. On the 14th, around 11 a.m., Liu Fang knocked on the door of his auto repair shop, panicking and telling him that Liu Ning had killed someone. He didn't want to get involved, but Liu Fang said that Liu Cheng's body was currently at her house. If this matter was exposed, the compensation for the eviction would definitely be affected. For the money and for Liu Fang, he gritted his teeth and agreed. The two of them brought the body back together, pretending that Liu Ning had fainted. Without thinking too much, he grabbed an axe, trembling with fear and disgust, and dismembered the victim's body into many pieces. During the process, he accidentally injured himself because of his stress. He didn't pay attention at the time, and only realized that the wound was deep to the bone when he finished. During the whole process, Liu Ning only muttered, "Auntie, I killed him. From now on we will have a better life. Please don't hit me anymore." After dismembering the body, the two of them divided it into parts and disposed of it at the waste treatment plant behind. When he got home, he began to feel scared. A man living with a widow and a child, with nothing in his hands, and an uncertain future. That night he tossed and turned, unable to sleep. On the morning of the 15th, he bought the earliest bus ticket to leave. He had a brother in Laudi, and planned to go there to hide for a while. Before leaving, he was afraid that Liu Fang would later denounce or blame him, so he stopped by a printing shop and printed out a marriage agreement. He said that he would return to marry her after everything was settled. In Laudi, he lived in hiding, not daring to go out. The wound, which was not treated in time, became infected and festered. The prolonged fever forced him to have his tonsils removed, and his voice was also completely ruined. After that, he and Liu Fang lost contact. Is it certain that Liu Ning killed someone? 100% certain. It was Liu Ning who killed someone. Is it the 14th or the 15th, do you still remember? The 14th, it was Thursday. Ni went to school, and I brought food to my daughter-in-law, so I left him at the repair shop by himself. Whether Liu Ning was under 14 or not, the crime of assisting in destroying evidence has been established. This not only does not reduce the crime, but on the contrary, if you lie, you can be punished more severely. Right? That's right. It was exactly on the 14th that Liu Ning killed Liu Cheng. Where's the evidence? Hammer. Liu Ning killed someone with a hammer. The hammer is still there. What? Where is the hammer? Officer who was startled and stammered. Seeing that Liu Fang did not answer, they went to see her, and this time she finally spoke up. The captain thought for a moment and then agreed. For us, meeting her won't cause any big problems. She probably won't be able to turn the tables. Okay, let them meet her. The evidence collection team hasn't made any progress yet. If we can determine the crime, we'll definitely need this hammer. When she saw the old man, Liu Fang was stunned, then tears welled up in her eyes. Sir, I really pulled you into the water. The old man didn't look at Liu Fang, just wrote a few words and handed them to police officer Hu. After reading it, Hu was very surprised, then passed the paper back to Team Lin. Don't take the blame for Liu Ning anymore. The kid has already confessed to the police. The hammer wasn't thrown away either, it was hidden in a secret place between the two of you. Be honest and confess, you can still take the opportunity to reduce the punishment. The hammer is now the only evidence in this case, an important factor in determining the crime. The old man gave this credit to Liu Fang? Are you sure? The captain asked the old man. The old man nodded without hesitation. The old man handed Liu Fang another piece of paper. She clenched her fists and burst into tears. Okay, I will confess everything. Chapter 11. Liu Fang's testimony. On the 14th, when she returned home, she saw Liu Ning injured, bleeding, but the boy appeared calm and did not say anything, so she did not ask further. Later, she discovered Liu Cheng's body. At that time, the old man helped dismember the body. The next day, the old man told her that he was about to divorce his wife, and then marry her. But before leaving, he secretly erased his wife's name from the family tree and replaced it with hers. Although she felt uneasy, she did not say anything, deliberately ignoring it. At noon, Liu Ning did not go out. Afraid that something might happen, she had already prepared a plan. Past pain. Liu Fang had been abused. When she was only 10 years old, she was kidnapped by someone else. They gagged the child and stuffed him into a sack. Liu Fang fought back, using a piece of broken glass to stab the kidnapper in the neck. After the police and the court collected evidence, that act was considered self-defense. A few years later, when she grew up, even though she was declared innocent, the label of murderer could not be removed. Aftermath. Applied to be a security guard, was rejected because of risk of endangering children. Applied to be a receptionist, was rejected because affecting the company's image. Applied to be a nanny, was rejected because emotionally unstable. Applied to be a janitor, was also rejected because not suitable for the conditions. No matter how much she explained, no one believed her, and no one would hire her. At noon, Liu Ning did not go out. Afraid that something might happen, she had already prepared a plan. Past pain. Liu Fang had been abused. When she was only 10 years old, she was kidnapped by someone else. They gagged the child and stuffed him into a sack. Liu Fang fought back, using a piece of broken glass to stab the kidnapper in the neck. After the police and the court collected evidence, that act was considered self-defense. A few years later, when she grew up, even though she was declared innocent, the label of murderer could not be removed. Aftermath. Applied to be a security guard, was rejected because of risk of endangering children. Applied to be a receptionist, was rejected because affecting the company's image. Applied to be a nanny, was rejected because emotionally unstable. Applied to be a janitor, was also rejected because not suitable for the conditions. No matter how much she explained, no one believed her, and no one would hire her. They climbed over the stone wall and walked towards the spiral staircase at the corner of the house, opening the old door with peeling paint. In the corner, among the clutter, they found a bloody hammer wrapped in a plastic bag. Inform the evidence team, take samples, and send them for DNA testing immediately, and also take samples from Liu Ning, Liu Fang, and the old man for comparison. Captain Lin finally let out a slight smile. They all breathed a sigh of relief, feeling as if they had been liberated. Chapter 12. Solving the case. Although their shift had ended, no one in the entire police station had returned yet. The section chief kept pacing back and forth restlessly. Xiao Zhang, has the lab sent the results yet? They will definitely have them today. Finally, the Black Santana arrived with the report in hand. Captain Lam read the report in front of everyone with anticipation. According to the test results, the hammer in the case contained a mixed sample of Liu Ning's DNA and the man named Bao, but Liu Fang's DNA was not found. The second DNA sample is not related to the mixed sample. Yes. Hu shouted happily when he saw the results. Lin Yi, lead everyone to the verdict. We will announce the results in the afternoon. The section chief said in a relieved voice. The whole station exploded. Finally, we don't have to rummage through the trash anymore. Great. We need to rest. The captain and his wife both lost sleep over this case. Captain Lam was also very happy, but after the joy subsided, he began to feel uneasy again. Captain Lin picked up all the evidence and statements of the case. From Liu Ning and Liu Fang's confessions, then Liu Fang's stuttering statement as if she wanted to hide something, making everyone think that she had killed someone and Liu Ning took the blame. Then Wang Fu provided clues to Liu Fang, and Liu Ning criticized Liu Fang for lying, and finally all the clues pointed to the old man as the mastermind. Finally, the old man provided the hammer that identified Liu Ning as the murderer. Everything was so smooth that it seemed like it had been prearranged. The hammer did not have any traces of Liu Fang's DNA. Under normal circumstances, if the hammer was a frequently used item in the house, how could Liu Fang not have touched it? Liu Fang changed his testimony twice, first admitting to killing Liu Cheng, then explaining why he took the blame for Liu Ning. This change was too easy. The old man had criminal experience, but during the interrogation he did not defend himself at all. There were still too many unclear points that could not be explained satisfactorily. Furthermore, what strange article? The suspicions could be explained by reasonable speculation, but an article that presented every detail, promoted the case, and created an effect in society every time it appeared, definitely could not be explained as random. This was definitely a deliberate act. Captain Lin stayed up all night to organize the documents. He continued to interrogate Liu Ning, Liu Fang, and the old man, but all three remained silent. The next day, when Captain Lin was about to ask about the article again, he suddenly heard Hu's voice. Captain Lin, we've caught the writer of the article. Captain Lin jumped up and looked outside. The writer was the old man's wife, a thin, frail-looking woman. According to Hu, when she was arrested at home, she was holding a cutout article with the title Evil and incited her nephew to kill his father, just to monopolize the compensation money for land clearance. Chapter 14. The Old Man's Wife. Her name was Li Fang, the old man's wife, and she had the same name as Liu Fang. When they were young, the two of them secretly competed with each other, from their dressing style to their academic achievements, and then their lovers, they were constantly competing with each other. Later, Li Fang married the old man. The family had an accident, the old man helped her, and they eventually got married. Unexpectedly, Liu Fang was able to use the compensation money to live a prosperous life. What did that bad woman rely on to climb so high? When Liu Cheng died, Liu Fang confessed she was very happy. In any case, Liu Fang could not live better than her in this life. And their friends would definitely know about this, so that they could see how miserable Liu Fang was, and see who Li Fang lived better in the end. Chapter 15. Not long after, Secretary Zhang of the political department had prepared the documents. Secretary Zhang's article was very good, the complicated case dragged on until it was cleared up, the content was very interesting. Captain Lam was praised for having evidence and was described in detail in the article, creating a positive image of the police agency. Secretary Truong, is this case solved too smoothly? Captain Lam asked with a bit of worry. Secretary Truong lowered his voice, mysteriously said to Captain Lam, "Don't worry, comrade, just wait, there will be good things in the future." Captain Lam asked more but Secretary Truong did not say anything more. "Hee, if you are lucky in the future, remember not to forget me. When you need the achievement documents, they are available." Captain Lam talked to Ho again. Ho presented the evidence and said, "Captain, you should rest a bit. If Liu Fang wants to reopen the case, let her try. The evidence and DNA test report are all there, trust them and don't make things difficult for yourself. Captain Lam looked in the mirror, saw his dark eyes and tired appearance, along with the thick smell of sweat. The pressure was too great. All the evidence was clear, why did he still think about it? The next day, the official newspapers and the commercial newspapers published Secretary Zhang's article. The higher-ups also called to praise Captain Lin. A few days later, there was good news that the Bureau had sent him a commendation file. The Bureau's political and legal committee had a 3-month training spot, and Captain Lin also met the criteria. Everything was progressing well, this was a smooth path to promotion. Chapter 16. The verdict. Although Secretary Zhang tried to ignore Liu Fang's attempt to take the blame for Liu Ning, the case still caused a stir in public opinion. The two pitiful fates were exposed in a special environment and exposed. The lawyers defended both sides. In the end, Liu Ning was determined to be under 14 years old, not criminally responsible, and was sent to reform by the government's welfare department. Liu Fang was convicted of concealing a crime and helping the suspect destroy evidence. With good reform records, she was sentenced to 3 years in prison, suspended for 1 year. Bao was convicted of helping the suspect destroy evidence, sentenced to 4 years in prison. Captain Lin was present at the trial, and then discussed a few things with everyone. Everyone, think about it, if Liu Fang really took the blame for Liu Ning, deliberately deceiving her husband, this case would have become an unsolved mystery? That's right, but in the end, it was self-inflicted failure. After all, Liu Cheng is a good-for-nothing, even cruel to his own son and sister. That old man is also a selfish person, but this time he took responsibility for his daughter. I never expected it. He is also a person at fault, he usually beats his wife and children, this time he must have received retribution, who knows? The conversation became lighter. Team Leader Lam, now Deputy Director Lam, also received the joint report from the police, prosecutors, and court. Chapter 17. On the 13th, the movie Ton Dan Muk Kitch was widely shown. The role of the father who loved his daughter so much that he took the blame for her, played by Tun, attracted a lot of attention. At dinner in the political and legal system, the members could not help but discuss this real-life case. Lin recalled the case of Liu Ning's father's murder, which had many similarities, and shared a few opinions. It is true that art originates from real life, but Lam is really sharp-eyed, catching the right person and not missing the bad guys. At that time, this case was very difficult, considered a trench because of having to find evidence from hundreds of tons of construction waste, being swept away by public opinion. If filmed, it would definitely not be inferior to Ton Dan Muk Kitch. Lin is truly outstanding. Not only is he excellent in this case, he is also the deputy director of the investigation team and has solved many cases related to coal mining. The compliments made Lam feel satisfied. Today, I have achieved this success, a large part of it is thanks to solving the Liu Ning kills his father case. When I solved that case, I received an honorary flag and hung it on the office wall. Lam raised his teacup, intending to say a few more words, but was quickly interrupted by the secretary next to him. Deputy Director Lam, General Manager Liu has arrived. Please come in. Lam signaled, everyone stopped discussing further, stood up to welcome him. Today's party is being held because Tan's company and the political and legal system are collaborating on a charity project. The project aims to solve the problem of difficulties in finding jobs for people who have completed their prison terms. Tan's company mainly trades in auto parts and has its own factory. Can provide a large number of job positions for those who have completed their prison terms, and our company is willing to accept those black marks, and also provide insurance and make them official employees. Tan Factory is not a new enterprise, everyone is quite familiar with it. It is said that Mr. Liu, the general manager, also lived here for a while before, so everyone knows Mr. Liu very well. Because this project has only officially started 2 months ago, everyone gathered today to better understand the project. The person in charge is the Deputy Director of the Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Zhou. Today Mr. Zhou took the initiative to introduce everyone. When he saw the young man who looked mature but still had a childish face, Lam was suddenly stunned. "Comrade Lam, this is the general manager of Tan Enterprise, Liu Ning." "Mr. Liu, this is Comrade Lam of the Political and Legal Committee." Liu Ning was also surprised to see Lam, but quickly regained his composure and shook hands. "Hello Comrade Lin, I've heard of you for a long time." Lin looked into everyone's eyes and replied, "Long time no see, Liu Ning." General Liu did not object, just smiled calmly and sat down. Vice Director Zhou spoke up, "What a young talent, General Liu has achieved such achievements at such an age." Not only that, General Liu is also very active in charity activities, such as supporting poor children with leukemia, in many places across the country. This time he also wants to help people who have completed their prison terms to have job opportunities. What a good person. Everyone responded. The atmosphere at the party became lively. Lin looked at Liu Ning, who was tactfully socializing, feeling a little uncomfortable in his heart, afraid that Liu Ning would start a conversation, so he barely responded. He had never sat at the same table with a person who had killed someone. It was the same before in the police department, and it was the same after transferring to the Political and Legal Committee. The police always arrest criminals, and would rather be hungry than sit down and eat with prisoners. He had witnessed too many bloody crime scenes and cruel acts, so he really couldn't see the other party as a normal person and eat with them. Lin now looked at the bowl of dark red tomato stewed beef and felt uncomfortable. The pureed tofu seemed like something that had been smashed. Lin was lost in his own thoughts. Fortunately, everyone was observant. Mr. Chu took the opportunity to raise his glass to approach Lin. "Comrade, don't be too harsh, he is a talented person, he can provide 30 jobs every month for our area, to prevent those who have completed their sentences from returning to their old ways." Lin did not reply, although everyone was still chatting privately, they occasionally glanced over here. Lin's attitude determined the success or failure of this matter. Vice Director Zhou was a little worried, turned around, and whispered to Lin, "Solving the problem of difficult employment for those who have completed their prison terms, reducing the rate of recidivism in our area. This is also good for your promotion achievements." Lin recalled the experiences of discrimination that Liu Fang had experienced, then thought about how Liu Ning was currently the one who proactively provided jobs. Seeing Vice Director Zhou's worried expression, Lin finally spoke up. "Director Liu is only 24 years old this year, right? To achieve such an achievement, you must have suffered a lot of hardships?" Liu Ning did not understand why Lin used the word hard, but seeing Lin's goodwill, it could be considered that everything was half successful. "Yes, I have suffered a lot. The lessons I have learned are things that cannot be taught in class. I also could not pass the university entrance exam, so I had to earn a living very early. However, I am currently preparing to study for a part-time university degree." Speaking of studying, Liu Ning was a little embarrassed. In front of a senior who was not an excellent student, he was a little embarrassed. "It is not as difficult as before, now it is much better. At least I do not have to go hungry, I do not have to wear torn clothes," Liu Ning said slowly. Everyone was silent again. It seemed that each person was immersed in their own thoughts. Lin still could not believe what he was witnessing. In front of him was the boy from the past, the one he had once handcuffed and taken to the police station. He was once a thoughtless murderer, a stain that everyone thought could never be erased. Yet now, he sits in the director's chair, leading a business that helps ex-convicts find their way back to life. His eyes are still the same as ever, a little quiet, but now more determined and mature. He is not only redeeming his mistakes, but also changing the lives of hundreds of other people. As a police officer, Lam once thought that criminals would live in darkness forever. But this boy taught him that sometimes, light appears from the darkest places. Perhaps, he witnessed a miracle of rebirth.